Hello, it's Denise, Minty Green Mama, and I am trying a new setup here so that I can show these beautiful cards, because today I really want to talk about the Wayhome Tarot. And I know there's a couple of walkthroughs out there already, but I have just really been loving this deck. And so I wanted to do a walkthrough here on this channel. And and I also have this kind of related but unrelated book, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So basically, I came across this deck on an Instagram post. Somebody had used this deck for a reading, and I immediately just fell in love with it and found it and ordered it right away. And it is a really interesting deck. It doesn't always fit my expectations, but I tend to get what it's saying in a lot of the images, even if it's not a typical imagery. And so the creators of this deck, it's and I hope I'm saying this correctly, but Bakara, Wintner, and Autumn Whitehurst. And Autumn Whitehurst is the artist. And so this is the box that it comes in. It's a nice sturdy little box. It doesn't have any cutouts, so that can be a little bit bothersome sometimes, but hey, it's a nice box. So let me put that. So it has no guidebook. And that, at first, it's still a challenge for me, because a lot of the things in here, I really want to know what the artist and the creator, were thinking about, and it's still like I think about that all the time. So here are the backs. They kind of match the if I can find it again, the cover. So it's pretty. The cardstock is, let's see, I checked on the website. I think it said it's 330 GSM with a smooth aqueous finish. Which I'm not sure what that means, but there you go. It's very slippery. Oh no, did I get it out of order? Okay. Yeah, it's a very slippery cardstock. And the first few times I shuffled it, it went like all over the place, and I had to go get all the cards, and I'm a little bit more used to it now. But so just to mention, to start off with, this book, WTF is tarot, and how do I do it? Also, this is also by Bakara Wintner, with illustrations by Autumn Whitehurst, the same people that did the deck. And I just thought I'd mention this. It's by the same people, and in here it uses a lot of the same basic illustrations. They're slightly different a lot of the times, like variations in the actual deck, and of course there's color, so that changes things. But as much as I love it, and I love this book, but it doesn't, and it uses the illustrations, but it doesn't talk about the actual cards in here. So, so that's kind of a bummer if you want to know about the cards. But just as a brief side note, this is an amazing book, and I will talk a little bit more about that, I think, at the end, because I want this video to be mostly about the deck. So I'm going to set this aside and just kind of go to the deck. All right, see if I can manage this in my new setup here. So yeah, let me get the majors set out here. All right, so this one, so the thing I thought interesting, there's a lot of things I think are interesting about this deck, and there's several notes that I made about this deck. There's so much more, I think, that I will find, and with having no guidebook, the benefit of that is that I am kind of discovering things for myself, which I think then stick in my head more than if I just read them out of somebody's guidebook. So that's definitely a benefit. So the majors in this deck, as far as I can tell, unless I've missed something, there are no people featured in any of the major Arcana cards, with the exception of the feet on this Fool. So this looks like a guy getting ready to kind of just jump off of a cliff maybe, or go, down this hill into this kind of like rainbowy path right here, and has like a few little blossoms, what almost look to me kind of like dandelion plants growing out of the rock. So I think that is a very interesting perspective to have for the Fool, as being like, you can kind of put yourself into the card. I've actually done some meditations where I put myself in the place of the Fool, like whose feet are here, and ask myself, like, what am I going to do next? Like, where am I headed? Like that and see what comes to my mind. So this has been a really interesting perspective for me of the Fool. And the Magician, you can still, I don't know if you can see it, but there's still the cup, the sword, the wand, and the pentacle. And you still have kind of like the infinity and the as above, so below in there. So all the major points of the Magician kind of still in there. This one is really interesting. I like that the water is there because it's dark, and so you have all that feminine, intuitive stuff, and it looks almost like moons, but also like closed eyes and a third eye that's open. So that's just a really gorgeous image for me. Oops, let me put. And I really like that for the High Priestess. So that is kind of, when I think of it as like eyes and a third eye, I guess that's kind of very person-like. But then we have the Empress, which is the trees, and it looks to me as if there's 3 different trees growing out of this heart here. And I think when you compare that to the Emperor, these cards are a little slippery, so they're kind of going all over the place. And so the Emperor is the brain, with the tree growing out of the brain, like very linear, very straight, growing like in a logical, like straight, orderly manner. And then you have the heart, which is kind of like different things, like all over the place, not growing necessarily in any specific like linear, fashion. So I think to me that does kind of encompass the energy of the Empress, which has like it's energy of like the heart, and you have the growing things, and you have it looks to me almost like that could be a willow tree there, which to me symbolizes intuition. So like feminine intuition, or just like that inner knowing. So all possible. I'm not sure what those other trees are, so that's not my forte. One day hopefully I'll learn. But so then again, with the Emperor, you have the brain, it has the roots coming out of it, and then the tree. And I find that because the Emperor is more, he's not coming from the energy of the heart so much as he's coming from the energy of the brain. And so I feel like that definitely, and it's very logical and straight and like linear, like energy, like it has a pattern. It's definitely it's got more of like a pattern and a structure. That's what a structure to it. So I like that a lot. And then the Hierophant, which is these mushrooms, and I really think it's fun having mushrooms as the Hierophant card. And it works for me somehow, and I can't quite put my finger on why this works for me. And I've been thinking a lot about it, but I plan on thinking about it a bit more, because the Hierophant is actually the card that I look for a lot in different decks to see, what is represented there. And so to me, it's interesting because it doesn't necessarily, I guess you could get tradition, because the traditional like use of mushrooms for medicinal purposes or even culinary purposes. So there's some tradition there. But anyway, that's just a very interesting. And it has like the roots, so very interesting. I have to think a little bit more about that. And the Lovers, the 2 birds. I don't know if those are doves or pigeons. I'm not super awesome. Oh, See, I'm still getting used to how I have my camera set up here. So yeah, we have like the lovers, feeding into each other, giving each other energy, both in the air. So that's interesting. It's an interesting way of looking at the lovers. And this is one of the cards where I haven't quite like gotten it yet, like with the two birds, but I'm working on that. The Chariot is definitely a card that I really, really like with this. Looks like a salmon, like swimming upstream. So you're putting a lot of energy into moving somewhere fast, and you're going to make it, you're determined and you're going to get there, but it's not the kind of energy you want all the time. Like you want it to be like focused, you give it your all and then have some time to rest in between. So I totally get that for the Chariot. And it does have, it only has the one animal there, but it does have kind of like a dark and a light, it has the two, because when I think of the Chariot, I do think of like having the dark and the light there to contrast. So it has a little bit of that. And then this Justice card, I really like this one because to me it looks like it's just very precariously balanced on the sword here. The different rocks with the different colors. And in the middle, you have the black and white, and you have kind of a gray circle. So to me, that just kind of symbolizes that, I don't know, because justice isn't that cut and dry. So you have the sword, but then you also have the rocks. And so if you move things, if things change just ever so slightly, like that becomes imbalanced. Because for me, justice is very, I don't know. It's not necessarily always black and white. There's just, there's different shades of gray. Like there's so much to consider. So, very precarious as in that card. And then the Hermit with the bear. And I think that this is, right here is like a little firefly. If I'm seeing that right. It's even hard for me to see when it's not on camera, but that's what I think that it is. A little bear in his little cave with this little looking at a little firefly. This is light, like a little lantern. And so, I can kind of get my normal hermit vibe from this card. Kind of. Again, I have to think about that one. Fortune. This to me, oddly enough, is one of the most disturbing cards for me because it's like this brightly colored Ferris wheel, and then you with like the lights and everything, and then you have like this ivy that looks like it's climbing up here. So as if, and I get that it's fortune, so you could be like up and you could be down, depending on where your luck is at the moment. It's not necessarily always going to be good. So, and I don't know what these constellations are. So if I find that out, that might add some more depth and meaning. And that could have something to do with the typical imagery of in the tarot. But I don't know enough off the top of my head to know that. So I have to look that up. And Strength, which is just an interesting strength. It's got the snake, it's got bones and roses, and I haven't, like, I can accept that this is strength. Like, it doesn't make me say, oh no, I don't get that, that's not strength to me, but I still haven't in my head decided why this works for me, if that makes sense. And the Hangman as the cocoon. So I thought that was really fun. There's so much to think about with a cocoon. Like, if it is, well, with the Hanged Man card, there's so much that comes to my mind with the cocoon, and then trying to think about traditional meanings, and going and comparing the two. But cocoons to me, just typically, I think of it as a period of retreat where you are doing some inner work, a lot of inner work. So I don't know. A lot of these, like, I think it's going to definitely take some contemplation and some meditation for me to get my meaning, because it has no guidebook. I have to kind of develop my own meanings for some of these and how they fit with the imagery. And so I do like that, but it takes time. So this is interesting death card. So you have like crystals coming out here of this animal that has died. Looks like a calf maybe, or a deer. So it's interesting because it's definitely dead, you know, animal, and you have like, I guess it's in the snow, and because you have these pine cones and it's kind of like a white background. And I'm wondering if it's been eaten. I know that's kind of like graphic, but at the same time I'm trying to, I guess the crystals, I'm trying to get the whole rebirth, the end, you know, the end and the beginning, like I do with a normal death card, like the end of things, end of a situation, not necessarily like, you know, dying. So that's another one to think about. I'm going to say a lot of these, like I'm going to have to think about that one. So this is what looks like a peacock to me, but it doesn't, it's like black and white, and then you have a little bit of color in the middle with this little, it looks almost like a cup or maybe some sort of a vessel surrounded by purple crystals and green flames. So again, it's interesting, and I haven't quite figured it out. This one I think is really interesting, is the devil, and it, to me, the eyes on the horses like look wild, like they've been spooked, you know, they've been spooked by something, and they're kind of like all dolled up in some sort of carnival outfits, and they've been spooked by like carnival noises, and they're running, and they don't know why they're scared, but it's just they're scared, and they're going forward, you know, they have all this forward momentum, they're just moving but without any plan, without any maybe conscious thought about why, you know. So I do get that for the devil. It's like, it's very much, you might be, you know, because I think of addiction and that a lot when I think of the devil, and stuff that you're doing, you might not understand the root causes why, but it's maybe not necessarily most beneficial actions that you're taking. So it's an interesting one that I kind of get. And then the tower, at first I thought this was a little tint, but I think it looks like a little A-frame now, sometimes when I look at it, with the flames coming out, being hit by lightning, and the whole forest is on fire around it. It's, yeah, not a very good situation to find yourself in, so definitely pretty traumatic there. And then the star with the, like a little stream going through with the reflection of the star. You have some little like white flowers and things going through. So, I mean, definitely a pretty card. Not all the same things I think about with the star, but I do like that card. Same with the sun. It's like a landscape with trees, but in a very different landscape, and then the bright sun. And then the moon is interesting because we have the, like a wolf, almost like a white wolf, howling at the moon. You still have like a little lobster guy coming out, but then you have the reflection here, and that is of a black wolf, not howling, just kind of staring. So, yeah. And then this is one of my favorites, and it's Judgment, and it's a cicada. And you have the little cicada discarded shell here, and the cicada coming up, you know, flying away. And you have like a little, it's interesting because it's almost like you have this little like stream of color with a circle here. So yeah, it's interesting because I know a lot of decks that kind of shy away from the whole like Judgment Day imagery. They kind of have like I want to say, I'm trying to, like a rebirth almost scenario. And so I think that that's interesting because it is like moving on, like leaving your old life behind and moving on. And the universe. And the universe is this gorgeous little cabin in the woods with a cozy little fire. and you've got like the colors up here, so it's really pretty. So that was kind of a little bit of a long talk about those. So I'm gonna go a little bit faster on the minors. So just one note that I wanted to say. So I kind of had separated these out by suits the court cards, because one thing I found that was interesting about these is if you look at all the court cards in this deck, it goes, so in the court cards in here are daughters, sons, mothers, and fathers. It's like a family unit. And so you have the daughters all have like this kind of background using the element. So in this case, the swords is air, and they have snowflakes, which I think is good, because I think of, I don't know, I mean, drifting in the air. So I definitely get that. And then the sun. So all the suns seem to have the element that they're associated with, or the suit they're associated with, their image. So this sun has a sword, and then he has an air-related tornado there, and you have the mother. And so the mother has, in every suit, has like internally, the image of the suit. So where the son is holding the sword and he has it outside of himself, the mother has the sword inside of herself. Like she has like internalized the elements of that suit. So it's almost like you kind of have like, this is a very inward energy, like, and this is outward action, and he has it outside of himself. And this is, again, incorporating all these lessons, and she has the sword like within her being, like she's internalized all that. And then he has all the fathers, they all have kind of a landscape situation going on, which this is kind of a landscape too, so I'm not sure exactly, because again, there is no guidebook. But so he has kind of like the little windmill situation going on there, and so it's interesting. So let's see. So again, you have the daughter, like her whole being is an image, and this time it's a little flower. This is for cups, and so then, and it has like the dew, collecting on the flower, and then have the son holding a cup. Again, that's outside of him, something he's using, an outward action, and the mother has the cup inside of herself, and the father. And this father is an interesting one for me, and this is because it's an upside down cup. So you have like the landscape is this way. This is the right direction for the landscape, and then the father is this way. So the cup is like spilling out, which I think is interesting on that one. But again, like a landscape of some sort. And then the court cards for the wands. And so she's fireworks, which I think is great. And then you have the son holding the wand, the mother with the wand inside, and the father has the lightning like striking around his head and then going all the way down. So my lighting, you can't see it. Goodness gracious. So we have the daughter as like the newer energy and new growth, and then the son is working on a pentacle outside of himself, because this is pentacles. The suits in this deck are swords, cups, pentacles, and wands. So traditional suit names. And then the mother has like the growing plants, and she has the pentacle, and the father has like a mountainous landscape with a pentacle of stars, it looks like, above his head. So that is the court cards. Ah. All right, and so just, oh, there's so much about this deck. So one other quick thing here is for the aces. My stacks are going everywhere. Okay, so anyway, one thing I did notice is, so this has, the suit of pentacles has a cube. The suit of wands has a tetrahedron, and the suit of cups has an icosahedron, and the swords is an octahedron. And I spent a little bit of time figuring that out, and when I was looking it up, I was trying to figure out what the different, because it's not a traditional like suit sign, like with just like the triangle like symbol of the elements. And so I thought that I would look that up, and it's the platonic solids. And one thing I noticed that was interesting is that, so there's 5 platonic solids, and so there's, you know, the cube is the earth, tetrahedron is fire, water is icosahedron, air is octahedron, and there's a 5th platonic solid, which is the dodecahedron, which is symbolizes the universe. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if that was on this universe card? And I went back and I looked through the whole deck, and unless I missed it, the dodecahedron is not in the deck as far as I can figure out. So I still do like the use of the platonic solids. This would be a thing where it would have been really fun to have the guidebook. But I was able to look it up, and because that's not something that I was familiar with. I had heard of platonic solids before, but I've not worked with them. So that's an interesting little thing that I found about the pentacles, or the aces. So here's the pentacles, and so we've got the ace, the 2, 3 with the ants, the 4. And what's interesting is all the suits, so like a lot of the animals, they all have animals. As far as I can tell, there's no people that I've noticed, and I've kind of gone through and looked, and I didn't see any. And all the animals kind of correspond to their respective suits. So in this pentacles, it's earth. You have like ants, and then this is kind of more, I guess you could say, would have to do with the water, but I can see it being earth too. It's hard to discount anything from like earth, but so you have the 4 with the frog, and you have like these tomatoes rotting on the vine for the 5 of pentacles, which I really liked. For 5, you have the 6 of pentacles with the drying herbs, and you have tiny little pinnacle charms tying each of them, so they definitely have pentacles on there. And the 7 pentacles as seeds. 8 of pentacles has a bee, which is a flying insect, but I definitely feel like of the flying insects, bees are, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but they're very earthy because they like, I don't know, they're very hardworking, and I associate hard work with earth. I don't know. In my head, it works. So then we have that. This was interesting because I was looking through and I thought this 9 of pentacles is the only one with no actual pentacles, because all the other pinnacle minors have a pinnacle. And then I noticed that these tomatoes with their little star tops look just like pinnacles. And I don't know why that took me so long to get. And there's 9. And so that's definitely the pinnacles. But I at first was just like, yeah, there's an abundance. It's a 9 of pentacles. And there's like a lot of, you know, fruits and vegetables, like you have like your harvest. I don't know, like I just didn't strike me, but yeah, the tomatoes. And so then here is the 10 of pentacles. It's like a table laid out for a party. So that's pretty fun. All right. And we have the wands. The 2 wands rubbing together to make a fire. 3 wands as a doorway, so that's pretty interesting. And then the 4 wands is like a bonfire at a party. So, and And this was an interesting one. The Five of Wands. I have one arrow in the bow, and then four just kind of, I don't know, just like in kind of chaotically strewn around with some fire. That was an interesting one for me. And the six of Wands, I can kind of see that, like reaching the point. And the Seven of Wands. The wands were ones that I found very intriguing, and I'm going to have to spend a little bit more time with these images to, like, especially like the Nine of Wands here. Some of these cards, like this one, the Ten of Wands, like burnt out, you know, it clicked for me right away, like what that meant. And some of them I'm like, yeah, I think this works, but I just can't put in, you know, in words like why I think this might work for this card. And so that's definitely something that I will think about. And the Ace of Cups, Two of Cups. And so again, all the animals in this suit are somehow water related. I love this for the Six of Cups. It's got like the little daisy or clover chain. And this one for the Seven of Cups, I love that. It's like all the cups, but they're not sturdy. Like they're going to tip. Like, wow, I like that. And the Eight of Cups, this was an interesting one for me as well, because I just, you know, I still am thinking about this one. Because to me, Eight of Cups is like walking away or going away. And we have an octopus, what looks like maybe just on the beach or just in the sand underwater, like with some old trash. Maybe because he needs to leave the situation. I don't know. And Nine of Cups on a hammock at the beach. I love that. And then the Ten of Cups, like stacked glassware. So it's kind of fun. And lastly, the Ace, the Two, the Three, Four. This one with the Five, it's like a spider. And some of the legs are swords. And some of the legs like are just legs, but the swords are kind of coming off. I don't know. Like it just really strikes me. And it's disturbing to me somehow, and I can't quite put it into words. The Six of Swords, which is interesting. And I don't know. I'm kind of still working on that image as well in my mind, as well as the Seven. Maybe like the swords are underground, like it's backstabbing. It's like you don't see it coming. It's hidden. I don't know. And then Eight of Swords with the poor little firefly. Poor little fireflies in there, surrounded by swords. And this one was so interesting. The Nine of Swords with the smokestacks. Yeah. And then the Ten of Swords, which is very, disturbing to the dead animal, but it's like stomach is filled with like bits of trash or something, it looks like. So that was kind of a long one. There's so much to say about this deck. Like there's so much I have thought about, and let me see if I can shuffle it without it going all over the place today. Woo! The bridge part was where they, like the, I could rifle shuffle them, and then when I would do the bridge, it would just like, they would just flip out all over the place. But I got it. Yeah, this one is just a really interesting deck. And so, let me pull a card. Let's just pull a card. The Four of Wands. Lovely. I mean, it's such a nice card. You still get the we're going to a party or celebration idea from the little like fairy lights that are strung up, and it's a big bonfire. Like it's a big party. You know, you're not just getting in the backyard together with friends and having a little fire, or roasting marshmallows. Like it's definitely like a big bonfire. It's a big celebration. something, you know, special. So I totally get that, you know, from this card. So I do like that one. And just briefly to talk about the book again. So again, even though the same images are used in this book, they're not all in here, but a lot of them are. All the majors, I think, are. It is just a really amazing book. So I just wanted to mention, because it is written and illustrated by the same people that did the Wayhome Tarot. This is WTF is Tarot. And how do I do it? And the only thing is there is some salty language involved, and that doesn't bother me at all. I don't tend to do that here on the channel because, you know, it's not for everybody, but it doesn't bother me. But as long as you're okay with that, and obviously by the title, you can kind of expect that to be in here. I just think I get so many tarot books, and I'll read a few, and especially the ones like this where it kind of goes through every card and gives you a definition. I just get, you know, you can only, I guess, read them so many times, but this is just such an interesting and like new to me take on the cards, especially the way, and it's really fun because all the majors have an anecdote. So it has like the card meaning, sorry you can't really see that, and it has an anecdote, so like a personal anecdote, so you can kind of see that energy of that card. And then it has like in a reading, and every card also has some keywords at the top. This is for all the majors. And then what's one of my favorite parts about it, let's see, is right here. So you have, for each court card family, you have like a little paragraph about what that kind of family would be like, and then each card as a like archetype. So you have Daughter of Wands as a Spitfire, Mother of Wands is the Real Housewife, and Father of Wands is the Mogul. So it's just a really interesting and fun way, I think, to look at the court cards. And then the minors. So the Two of Cups. Actually, and this is interesting because this Two of Cups, I love this with the two little seahorse, but I'm pretty sure the Two of Cups in the deck is the two jellyfish. So different. But so Two of Cups, an amazing Tinder date. Like that's the title of that. Like how, you know, I don't know, it's just a fun way. And it's really, I don't know, it's like deep at the same time, but like fun. So I really, really like the book. I just wish that either the book had talked about the cards a little bit more, the card designs, but it came out before the deck, I'm pretty sure, or that the deck had come with a guidebook, because some of the imagery I'd really like to hear, especially like from the creator, you know, and the artist, what they had in mind when they were designing that. Although it is fun to find out for myself, but I do like I would like to know. I'm curious. So anyway, it's getting a little bit long for a video, so I'm going to say goodbye. Thanks for watching my long rambly video, and I will talk to you again soon.